Is there lead in your protein powder? Do you need to throw away your protein powders? Consumer Reports released this thing saying there is lead in many of the top brands of protein. However, let's dive into why that just is not true. First of all, before I even get into that, we lab test our protein powder. One thing that we are really excited about is Amazon is now requiring lab testing, third-party lab testing, for many dietary supplements. This new program by Amazon is amazing, in my opinion. You have to sign off on third-party testing, and it can only be done by NSF or Eurofins, which are two extremely qualified third-party labs. But let's get into what Consumer Reports was saying about lead in protein powders. We're gonna go to Dr. Michael Richman, MD, for this.
So what's the truth about lead in protein powders? Well, the key takeaway is that you don't need to panic about lead in your protein powder, certainly based on their data and their information. Consumer Reports uses very unscientific and incredibly chemophobic Prop 65 levels for lead, which were set in 1989 without any scientific basis whatsoever. Scientifically grounded exposure guidelines, what's called the IRLs, the interim reference levels, are based on exposure levels that convert to blood lead levels. The IRLs are 8.8 micrograms per day for reproductive age females and 12.5 micrograms per day for general adults. These are 17.6 times and 25 times higher daily exposure levels compared to the Prop 65 levels, respectively, and are extremely conservative. A daily exposure level of lead of 12.5 micrograms equals a blood lead level of 0.5 micrograms per deciliter. I know there's a lot of numbers there, but try and bear with me. Adverse health effects attributed to lead exposure in adults are not seen until blood levels reach 10 to 20 micrograms per deciliter. And in the US, adults have lead blood levels around 0.5 to 1.5 micrograms per deciliter. Remember, lead is part of our planet, okay? These incredibly conservative IRLs are designed to help keep us safe. These protein powders are not poisoning you.
Basically, what Consumer Reports does is they use these Prop 65 guidelines, which just aren't scientific at all. If you ate a few apples, you're going to go over their lead contamination requirements. There's been this new trend to lab test stuff and say that it has too much lead in it and then sell an alternative. But the simple fact is, in all the protein powders they tested, there is not a dangerous amount of lead. You're talking in many of those protein powders, you would have to consume like 70 scoops per day to get, to a dangerous level of lead. Protein powder is not going to be a source of lead in your diet. So if you're an athlete or someone lifting weights, protein powder can be one of the healthiest things you consume. And of course, real food first, but it's tremendously convenient and affordable. Keep on taking your protein powder, whichever brand you choose. Love y'all. Stay healthy. Stay safe.